Once upon a time, in a quiet village near the sea, there was a young boy named Elias. He loved the ocean, but he was afraid of the deep, dark waters. Every day, he stood on the shore, watching the waves crash, listening to the whispers of the sea. He wanted to go out and explore, but something inside him held him back. "Why do you never swim?" Elias, his little sister, Leila, asked one evening. He sighed. "The water is deep. What if I get lost? What if I never come back?" Leila giggled. "But the water is also full of wonders. Maybe the ocean is waiting for you." Elias didn't answer. He just watched as the sun melted into the horizon, turning the sky into gold and fire. One day, an old fisherman named Tobias came to the village. His hair was white as sea foam, and his eyes were deep like the ocean. He sat near the shore, fixing his fishing net, and noticed Elias standing alone. "You fear the water, don't you?" Tobias said, his voice calm like the evening waves. Elias looked down. "I don't know. I don't trust what I can't see." The old man smiled. The dark waters, they scare many. But do you know something? The deeper the ocean, the more beautiful its secrets." Elias frowned. "Secrets?" Tobias nodded. "Yes. People fear what they do not understand. But if you face your fears, you might find something more wonderful than you ever imagined." That night, Elias couldn't sleep. The old man's words kept echoing in his mind. Could there really be something beautiful in the dark waters? The next morning, something unexpected happened. A great storm hit the village. The wind roared, the sky turned black, and the sea grew wild. The villagers ran for safety. But suddenly, a scream broke through the noise. Leila was missing. Elias's heart pounded. He ran to the shore and saw her tiny figure struggling in the waves. Without thinking, he jumped into the water. Cold, deep, endless fear gripped him, but he pushed forward. "Leila," he called, swimming as fast as he could. The waves were strong, pulling him down, but he saw her little hands reaching out. He grabbed her, holding her close. "I've got you," Leila sobbed. "I was so scared." "So was I," Elias whispered. He kicked his legs, fighting against the waves, pushing towards the shore. His lungs burned, his arms ached, but he didn't stop. And then light, they broke through the surface, gasping for air. The villagers rushed in, pulling them to safety as Elias lay on the sand, his heart still racing. He looked at the ocean. He had faced the dark waters, and he had found something beautiful. Not just courage, not just strength, but love. Leila hugged him tightly. "You saved me," Tobias smiled, standing nearby. "And you saved yourself." Elias understood now. The ocean was not just deep and dark. It was full of life, full of wonder, full of adventure. just like the world, just like our fears. We all have dark waters inside us, fears, doubts, pain. But if we are brave enough to dive in, we might find something greater than fear. We might find who we truly are. So, my friend, listen well. If you ever stand at the edge of something unknown, something that scares you, step forward. Because beyond fear, there is something beautiful waiting for you. Days passed, but something inside Elias had changed. The fear that once chained him was no longer there. He no longer stood at the shore, watching the waves from a distance. He walked closer, feeling the wet sand between his toes, letting the water kiss his feet. One evening, as the sky turned pink and gold, Tobias sat beside Elias again. "You faced your fear," Tobias said, his eyes twinkling like stars. "How do you feel now?" Elias smiled, looking at the horizon. "Lighter, like I let go of something heavy." Tobias chuckled. "Fear is heavy, my boy. It keeps us trapped in places we don't belong. But courage sets us free." Elias thought about those words. He had always feared the unknown, but the moment he stopped running from it, he discovered something precious, his own strength. But the lessons of the ocean were not over. One day, as Elias and Leila played near the shore, a group of men from the village ran past them, shouting, "The storm last night broke a ship near the rocks." One man yelled, "There might be survivors." Elias's heart pounded. Without thinking, he ran after them. Near the jagged cliffs, the sea roared with fury, tossing broken wood and torn sails onto the shore. And then a voice, faint, weak. Elias saw a man clinging to a piece of the wreckage, his face pale, his body limp. Without hesitation, Elias plunged into the water. The cold bit into his skin, but he didn't stop. Stroke by stroke, he fought against the waves, reaching the man. The man's eyes barely opened. "Hold on," Elias said, grabbing him. "I've got you." The journey back was hard. His arms burned, his legs felt like lead, but he pushed forward. The villagers cheered as they pulled the man to safety. Elias collapsed onto the sand, his chest rising and falling. Tobias knelt beside him, pride in his eyes. "You are not the same boy I met before, Elias." Elias looked at the ocean. I think the sea changed me." Tobias shook his head. "No, my boy. The sea only showed you who you truly are." That night, as Elias lay in bed, he thought about everything. About fear, about courage, about how sometimes the things we fear the most hold the greatest lessons. He realized something important. Life is like the ocean, sometimes calm, sometimes wild, sometimes clear, sometimes dark. But no matter how deep, no matter how unknown, there is always something beautiful waiting beneath the surface. And so, my friend, if you ever feel lost, if you ever feel afraid, Remember Elias's story, fear is just a wave. It comes, it passes. But you are stronger than any storm. And if this story touched your heart, if it made you feel even a little bit braver, then show your love. Like this, subscribe for more, because sometimes all we need is a little reminder that even in the darkest waters, light will always find its way through. The days in the village passed, but Elias was no longer the same. He was no longer the boy who feared the ocean. He was the boy who had faced it, the boy who had found courage in the depths. He spent more time by the sea, not just standing at the shore but diving into the waves, exploring the world beneath. He discovered the beauty hidden below the colorful fish, the swaying corals, the way the sunlight danced in the water like scattered gold. One evening, as he sat watching the waves, Leila came and sat beside him. "You love the ocean now, don't you?" she asked, her small voice soft against the sound of the tide. Elias smiled. "I always loved it. I was just afraid of it." Leila tilted her head. "And now I understand it." Elias said, "Fear doesn't mean something is bad. Sometimes it just means we don't know it yet." Leila giggled. "So, does that mean I should stop being afraid of the dark?" Elias laughed, ruffling her hair. "Maybe. Who knows what wonders are hiding there?" But deep inside, Elias knew his journey wasn't over. One afternoon, Tobias came to him with an old wooden box. His hands, wrinkled like old maps, carefully unlatched it. Inside was a small, golden compass. "This was mine," Tobias said, his voice steady, his eyes distant. "It guided me when I was young, when I was afraid." Elias touched the compass. The metal was warm, as if it held the memories of many journeys. "Where did it take you?" Elias asked. "To places I never imagined," Tobias said. "But do you know the secret of a compass?" Elias shook his head. "It doesn't show you where to go," Tobias explained. "It only shows you the direction, the journey. That's for you to decide." Elias felt something stir inside him. He had faced his fear, but now a new thought entered his mind. What if the ocean wasn't just something to understand? What if it was something to follow? That night, as he lay in bed, staring at the wooden ceiling, he thought about Tobias's words. The ocean stretched beyond the village, beyond the horizon, and suddenly the world didn't seem so small anymore. 1 week later, the entire village gathered at the shore. A small boat stood ready, its sails catching the morning wind. Elias stood before it, his heart pounding, his hands gripping the golden compass Tobias had given him. Leila clung to his arm. "Do you really have to go?" Elias knelt, looking into her wide eyes. "Leila," he whispered, "what if there's more out there? What if there are stories waiting to be found, just like the one I found in the dark waters?" Tears filled her eyes, but she smiled. Then you have to go. Tobias placed a hand on Elias's shoulder. The sea will test you. It will challenge you. But it will also teach you. Remember, my boy, courage is not about never feeling fear. It's about moving forward, even when you do. Elias took a deep breath, looking out at the endless horizon. The dark waters had once scared him, but now they called to him. With one last look at his village, the place that had shaped him, the place that had taught him, he stepped onto the boat. The sails caught the wind. The boat moved forward, and Elias sailed toward the unknown, toward the adventure waiting beyond the horizon. Because life is not meant to be lived on the shore. It is meant to be explored, to be felt, to be embraced, and sometimes the greatest stories begin when we finally choose to sail into the unknown. So, my friend, listen closely. If there is something you dream of, something that calls to your heart, go. Do not let fear stop you. Because beyond fear, beyond doubt, beyond the dark waters, there is something waiting for you. Something wonderful. Elias's boat drifted further from the shore, the village becoming smaller and smaller behind him. The wind carried him forward, the waves whispering secrets only the brave could hear. He held the golden compass tightly, watching as the needle trembled, pointing him toward a direction unknown. For the first time in his life, he was not afraid. For the first time, he felt truly free. The sea stretched endlessly before him, a vast blue world full of mysteries. Days passed, and Elias learned to trust the waves. He listened to the wind, watched the sky, and let the ocean teach him. But the sea, just like life, is not always kind. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, the sky changed. The winds grew restless. The water, once gentle, became rough. A storm was coming. Elias tightened his grip on the ropes, his heart pounding. The first drops of rain fell like cold fingers on his skin. The wind howled, pushing against his small boat. The storm rived in full fury. The waves roared like giants, crashing against his boat, tossing it like a leaf in the wind. Lightning split the sky, and for a moment, everything was white. Elias fought to hold on. Then a giant wave that rose like a mountain, dark and terrible, and before Elias could react, it crashed down upon him. A cold water swallowed him whole. Silence, darkness. He was sinking. The ocean pulled him down, deeper and deeper, into the very depths he had once feared. For the first time in a long time, fear returned, but then something stirred inside him. A memory. Lila's voice. What if the ocean is waiting for you? Tobias's words. Courage is not about never feeling fear. It's about moving forward, even when you do. Elias opened his eyes. Even in the darkness, even in the deep, there was light above. He kicked his legs, pushing, reaching. His chest burned, his arms ached, but he refused to stop. He had come too far. He would not let fear win. With one last push, he broke through the surface, gasping for air. The storm still raged, but his small, fragile boat was still there, waiting. With every ounce of strength, Elias swam toward it, climbing back aboard. He was soaked, exhausted, but he was alive. The storm roared around him, but something had changed. Elias no longer fought against the sea. He moved with it. He adjusted the sail, steered with the wind, let the ocean guide him instead of resisting it. And just like that, the storm was no longer his enemy. It was his teacher. Hours later, the first light of dawn touched the horizon. The storm had passed. Elias sat at the edge of his boat, breathing deeply, watching the golden sky reflect on the water. He had survived. No, he had conquered, because sometimes the storms in life do not come to destroy us. They come to show us who we truly are. And in that moment, Elias knew this was only the beginning of his journey. So, my friend, listen well. You will face storms. You will be pulled into dark waters. But do not fear, because you are stronger than you think. Because beyond every storm, there is always a new dawn waiting for you. The sun climbed higher in the sky, warming Elias's skin as he sat in his small boat, drifting forward. The storm was behind him, but its lessons remained. He had fought against fear. He had faced the darkness, and he had survived. But the journey was far from over. For days, Elias followed the golden compass, trusting it to lead him somewhere unknown, somewhere meant for him. The ocean stretched in every direction, endless and mysterious. Then, one evening, just as the sky turned to fire and gold, he saw something, a distant shape, land. His heart pounded with excitement. Paddling with all his strength, he guided his boat toward the shore. As he got closer, he saw tall trees swaying in the wind, their green leaves glowing under the setting sun. Birds circled above, calling out as if welcoming him. Elias stepped onto the shore, the sand warm beneath his feet. For a moment, he just stood there, breathing in the air of this new world. He had left behind everything familiar, everything safe, and now he had found something new. But as he explored the island, something caught his eye. Footprints, not his own. Someone else was here. His heart raced. Was he truly alone? Or had he found something greater than he expected? Following the footprints, he moved carefully through the trees. Then, in a small clearing, he saw her, a girl, about his age, sitting by a stream, her dark hair flowing like the water as she turned, eyes widening in surprise. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, she smiled. "You're not from here," she said softly. Elias shook his head. "No, I sailed here." Her smile widened. "Then you must be brave." Elias laughed. "I wasn't always." The girl looked at the golden compass in his hands. "That led you here?" she asked Elias. nodded as she tilted her head. Then maybe you were always meant to find this place. The words settled deep in Elias's heart. Maybe she was right. Maybe life was not about knowing exactly where to go. Maybe it was about trusting the journey. That night, as Elias and the girl sat by the fire, sharing stories, he realized something. All his life, he had been afraid of the unknown. But now, he was living it. And it was beautiful. So, my friend, listen well. Do not fear the unknown. Do not fear the journey. Because sometimes, when you dare to step forward, you find exactly where you were meant to be. The fire crackled softly as Elias and the girl sat side by side, the warmth of the flames dancing on their faces. The night sky stretched above them, full of stars, each one a tiny spark in the vast unknown. For the first time in a long time, Elias felt completely at peace. "What is your name?" he finally asked, breaking the comfortable silence between them. The girl smiled, brushing her hair back. "Naya," she said. "And yours?" "Elias." Naya nodded. "You are the first traveler I have ever met." Elias raised an eyebrow. "You live here alone?" She shook her head. "No, my people are on the other side of the island, but I come here often to be alone with my thoughts. The ocean speaks if you listen." Elias glanced at the waves, rolling gently under the moonlight. "I think I've learned to listen." Naya studied him for a moment. "Why did you leave your home?" Elias hesitated. "I don't know," he admitted. "Something inside me told me I had to go, that there was more out there." Naya's expression softened. "Then you are like the ocean itself, always moving, always searching." Elias smiled. "I used to fear it, and now," he looked at the sea, feeling something deep inside him, something powerful, something certain. "Now I trust it." Naya's eyes shone with understanding. "Then you are not lost, Elias. You are exactly where you are meant to be." The word settled into his heart like an anchor. For so long, he had wondered if he was making the right choices, if leaving home was a mistake, if the journey would ever lead him anywhere. But now, sitting here, listening to the waves, looking at the stars, he knew the journey itself was the answer. Naya stood, stretching. "Come," she said, offering her hand. "There is something I want to show you." Elias took her hand, and together they walked through the trees. The island was alive with sounds: crickets singing, the wind rustling the leaves, the distant call of an owl. Then, suddenly, they stepped into a clearing. Elias gasped. Before him stood a massive tree, its roots twisting deep into the earth, its branches stretching toward the heavens, and hanging from its limbs were hundreds of tiny glowing lanterns, swaying gently in the breeze. It was like standing in a sky full of fallen stars. Naya smiled at his amazement. "My people light these lanterns for those who travel far from home. For those who seek something greater, each one is a prayer, a wish, a hope that they will find what they are looking for. Elias's heart ached in the most beautiful way. A lantern for every soul searching for their path, for every dreamer who dared to chase the unknown, for every person who had ever felt lost and kept going anyway. Naya reached into a small pouch and pulled out a new lantern, unlit. She handed it to Elias. "Make a wish," she whispered. Elias held the lantern close, closing his eyes. He thought of Leela, of Tobias, of the village he had left behind. He thought of the storm, of the fear he had conquered, of the endless ocean that had led him here. And then he thought of the future, of all the places he had yet to see, of all the stories waiting to be written. Taking a deep breath, he opened his eyes and lit the lantern. The tiny flame flickered, then grew strong, and as he let it go, he watched it rise into the night, joining the others in their silent dance among the stars. A prayer, a promise, that no matter where the journey took him next, he would keep going, because some paths are not meant to lead home. Some paths are meant to lead us to who we are truly meant to be. So, my friend, listen well. If you are standing at the edge of the unknown, if your heart calls for something more, do not be afraid. Take the first step, because somewhere out there, in the great, vast world, something beautiful is waiting for you. And if this story touched your heart, if it made you feel something deep inside, then show your love. Like this. Subscribe for more, because we all have a journey to take. And sometimes, all we need is the courage to begin.